Hey guys, it's Andrew, the Urban Bayman, and I'm standing at the foot of the Great Northern Peninsula, or what we like to call the Viking Trail. Now, when I'm touring, I pity my guests sometimes, right? Some of the stuff that I carry on with, but I've got a real problem with the concept of a Viking Trail. Right, we call it the Viking Trail because if you take this road and you continue north for about 450 kilometers, eventually you'll land in Lanza Meadows. Right, and Lanza Meadows where the Norse people would have landed in the year 1000. That's why we have this Viking replica ship in the background. Right, and there's no doubt, look, the Norse people did land here in the year 1000. Right, we have archaeological evidence of it. We can see where their longhouses were. We found wood, we found metal, we found iron, we found all sorts of evidence that they were indeed here. But as is so often the case when it comes to our history, and it's a real problem that I have with our history, is that so much of our history is presented by Hollywood. Right, and Hollywood is not in the business of creating accurate records. Right? They're sensationalizing, they're titillating the situation. They build these, well, again, this style of replica and present us with the idea that there were Viking people in Newfoundland, because they weren't. All right, the word Viking means raider. Right? And let's not kid ourselves. Even the raiders, because there were Vikings, yes, there were raiders. Talk to the crowd in England, talk to the people in the halls all throughout Europe, long before they ever landed here in the year 1000. The Norse people were indeed raiding those coastlines. Not with horns on their helmets, by the way. That's a complete Hollywood fabrication. By the time they got to Newfoundland in the year 1000, these people were not raiders. They were not Vikings, right? They were a very advanced, very civilized, very technical people. I mean, look, they had because they're the first ones to cross the Atlantic Ocean, right? Think about their landing. Gwyn Dwyer did a beautiful speech. Chuck Fury delivered it when we celebrated the 1000th anniversary of the Norse people in Newfoundland, the year 2000. Gwyn wrote a paper called The Circle of Light. Chuck delivered it, did a beautiful job. Right? The idea basically is whether you believe in a Darwinian principle or the Garden of Eden, right? We all recognize that man began on the plains of Africa. One crowd headed east, the other crowd headed west. For over hundreds of thousands of years, and they finally, the stopgap, right? The unsurmountable was the Atlantic Ocean until the Norse managed to cross it for the first time in the year 1000. And when they landed in Lanza Meadows, land of meadows, Medusa, Jellyfish Cove, and a big shout out to Rob Giller for providing that information. When they landed in Newfoundland in the year 1000 and they extended their hand, right, and they greeted what they referred to as the Skraeligs, the locals, the aboriginal, the native Newfoundland people, right? They completed the circle of light. It was the first time man looked into his brother's eyes, separated at birth, some 250,000 years earlier, meeting here in Newfoundland. And of all the things that we take out of that, what Hollywood takes out of that, right, of all the things, is the Viking and the raider. Because for the first time, and probably the only time in history, the European wasn't the raider, right? He wasn't the tough guy. And one of the things that I love to point out is that in a place like this, at a time like this, it's probably be a good idea to praise up, to play up the underdog, or who's become the underdog ever since. Because the Aboriginal people in Newfoundland were so tough. They were so hardy, despite the fact that they didn't have any of the technologies that the Norse had. Right? These guys they were Stone Age people, didn't even have a wheel. And they were so tough that they were able to drive back the Norse, the supposed Vikings, the raiders, right? And so effectively that we never saw any more Europeans for another 500 years. So guys, when you're on tour with me, and now when you're watching my YouTube channel, hopefully you'll gain a greater appreciation for what our history is really about and what it is that we might really be celebrating. Right? Because it's not so much, I mean, it is a circle of light. It is the changing positions, the changing balance of power, the fact that there's never ever a true right and a wrong, and the only way that we can see our way forward is to be able to find that balance where we appreciate what the other side is presenting. And until, or if we leave that in the hands of Hollywood, right, they're not ever going to deliver that message. It's always the sensationalized version of our story. And thus the reason we end up with a roadway called the Viking Trail. Not much of a raid, let me assure you. Unless it's a cannon raid, because they got repelled pretty good. That's a corny one. But anyway, that's where we're going to leave it. I'm Andrew McCarthy. I'm the Urban Bayman, and I hope you're enjoying these. I hope you subscribe to our channel. Please share it with your friends and leave comments, right? We love to debate. We love to have more conversations, and I think that's our next step in this, is that we're going to start bringing in some people to make these discussions a little livelier. In the meantime, thanks for watching.